Well, I suppose I've always been aware of the Royal Court. Even before I started acting at youth theatre. I joined youth theatre in Teddington where I grew up when I was 15, but even before that I was aware of it because my mum had gone to school with George Deveen's daughter, who was Jojo Deveen. They were at the same school. So she had always kind of told me this in days where I wasn't that impressed because I didn't really know who anyone was, do you know what I mean, when I was a child. So that was the first time I'd ever kind of heard of the place. It's a hard one to kind of say when I first was aware of it properly, because it's like one of those things like when did you first know of the Beatles or whatever. It's like it's just part of your kind of folklore, I guess, or part of your DNA, especially as soon as you are interested in theatre and as soon as you're interested in acting. And for me that was when I was a teenager. It just almost by osmosis you just get to know about things that were on here and things that were about why it was an important theatre, and I can't remember exactly when that would have been. The Weir I thought was amazing, and that did stay with me a lot. That was kind of I think it's still one of my favourite nights in a theatre actually, and I don't really know why other than it's sort of the feeling it gives you. I mean, I couldn't put it into words very well, or certainly not intellectually, but it gave me, it changed my stomach a bit, and I really like that. That's kind of what I look for in art really, whether it's music or painting or theatre or anything. It's not necessarily an intellectual response, but just something that makes me feel a lot as well as think. You know, the thing that really resonates with me as far as the influence and the sort of the different strands of influence at this place is, I guess, in the wake of Shopping and Fucking. There seemed to be, I seem to do a lot of workshops here and was sent a lot of scripts here in the wake of that, that were sort of, in that mode, I guess. Not as good, you know, but just clearly influenced by more of the sort of shock thing, to be honest, I guess. Stupidly, I look back now, you know, at some stupid decisions you make, or just naive decisions you make as a sort of 25-year-old. And I was offered the world tour of Shopping and Fucking. And I didn't do it because I was in love with a girl at the time. And I was in a relationship with someone. And I thought, I don't want to be away for 3 months in New York or wherever it was. And now I think, what were you doing? You know. And it was love. It was a real relationship. But still, I didn't have that. I didn't quite have the measure of, no, this is a good thing, you know. Christ knows what my agent thought at the time, you know. But she was very good about it. Yeah, that would have been a good gig, and stupidly I turned it down. You know, I would have gone to New York way younger than I actually ended up going to New York. You know. Not for nothing do they call it the National Theatre of New Writing. I guess it's where new writers are nurtured. It's where new writers have always been able to come through, and it doesn't. I mean, it's great that some of those new writers are now legendary figures in British and world theatre, but that's not always, you know, you don't know that at the time. You don't know that John Osborne's going to be this or that Pinter's going to be that or whatever, but the important thing is that you nurture people, do you know what I mean? And the important thing is that you take a chance on people. I think this theatre's always been really good at that, as is the nature of all things in life. Sometimes it'll work and sometimes it doesn't, but that's part of the nature of the gamble of working with new work. I personally, you know, very often when I'm asked what are the parts you really want to play, and there are a couple of parts kind of in the theatre tradition that I want to play.
Name
them. Sally Bowles, mainly. That's the main one. But it's that or nothing, to be honest. There are a couple, but really what I've enjoyed in my theatre work over the last 20 years has been playing new parts, you know, playing parts that I didn't know that I wanted to play until I've read it. And obviously this place typifies that. I love the fact that it exists, and I think everyone who's into theatre, everyone who's interested in theatre or that side of culture owes it a debt really, or should be very, very glad that it's here. And we need to, not just this place, but just our cultural place. We need to look after them and cherish them, definitely. But this is an extremely good example of one of those places that if it didn't exist, we'd soon know about it. You know, those of us who care would soon know about it if this place wasn't here. Yeah, Clybourne Park was a lot of fun. That was my one time that I worked with Dominic Cook, who was delightful, and a wonderful cast of people. And Bruce Norris, a brilliant writer who was very no nonsense and very comically sort of straight. You know what I mean? Like, but a brilliant comedian actually, but he doesn't have a lot of lovey in him. Do you know what I mean? But nor is he kind of rock and roll. He's not that. He's just like he just is quite dispassionate about things, and I like that. Loved the play, loved the cast, and it was really nice to do a play, you know, that was about stuff that we care about and stuff that is sort of current and important. Again, it was a sort of play about race without looking like we on the stage have worked all this out and we're now giving it to you. It was like, well, no, we're part of this as well. Everyone was part of it. It didn't feel preachy. It didn't feel like we'd worked it all out and this is now law and we're giving you it was like, it felt kind of up for grabs in a way that I'm probably not explaining very well. But the audience were very vital, very nice mixed audience who were alive, you know, and there were lines in that, there are lines in that play that literally make people gasp out loud, like very loudly, like proper sharp intakes of breath, which I loved. I really thought I was going to get the sack. I thought all the men in that play were going to get the sack one night. I thought if the show report gets back to Dom, because we got the giggles. We got, I suddenly saw, I was sitting opposite Sam Sproul, and I saw either I said something wrongly or he did, but I just saw his nostrils start to go, and then we were ruined, completely ruined. And me and him and Lucian and Samati were just literally delivering lines like that for about a minute. There was about 1 minute where we couldn't speak, and we were just talking about serious race and property and this sort of stuff like that. And I thought, we are fucked. We are, and you know the panic that you, and of course as soon as you try and stop laughing, it's much, much worse. And like sweating, really sweating. And thank God for the women in the production, because they helped. They kept us onto it. It was awful. It was really bad, but joyous. And I really regret not being able to do the transfer of that, because it felt really, well, it was a big it was a huge hit, you know, it was a big successful show, and I felt like getting sort of substituted off at the last 15 minutes of the World Cup final or something. I really wanted to see it through, but unfortunately I couldn't. If the Royal Court didn't exist, I wouldn't hold out as much hope for the future of British theatre, is the truth. I think it's, you know, again, it's not the only, but it's one of the very, very important places that I think needs to exist if we care about theatre, you know. I mean, obviously, historically, it's been easily one of the most important places for new writing in the world, actually, not just in this country. But given that I'm confident that that's going to go on and continue, I'd be slightly less confident about our ability to bring new theatre to people. And because who's going to be the guy or the gal in 20 years? You know what I mean? Like, who are those people going to be? And without places like this, then, and there aren't many of them, you won't get that. They just won't happen, you know. They need to be nurtured, they need to be supported, and people need to be supported through the good and the not so good play, you know, because not everyone just knocks them out of the park, you know. I mean, Christ, imagine if Shakespeare got dropped after every bad play. You know what I mean? Like, not all of them were doozies, you know, and you need to be looked after, and people need to be excited. You know, people need to come to the theatre and be excited. And sometimes, like I say, you know, in the wake of shopping and fucking, that's going to be in your face excitement. Some of which will have a limited appeal, some of which is better than others, but still, you need to be excited and shocked sometimes, and just to be entertained and jolted. You know. Not everything about punk was fantastic, but some of it really was, and some of the stuff that came in the wake of it wasn't so good because it didn't seem so genuine. It was just the echo of what that shock was. But the initial shock is really necessary, you know. And I think this place has always been good at that every sort of few years of delivering something else that we didn't know we needed.